the Big Friendly Swim podcast, and I'm the Big Friendly host. And today's guest is going into your junior year, if my math is right.
Senior, yeah.
Senior
Senior.
year at UNC, not UNCW.
Correct.
Like I knew it was the Tar Heels. Like I knew the name of the school and I knew the mascot. But I think when I was typing it out, like I just messed up the acronym.
All
But
good.
Greer Pattinson, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So,
Awesome.
talk to me about what initially made you realize that UNC was the right fit for you.
Yeah, so throughout recruiting, I was talking to my main goal in recruiting was kind of to get out of Arizona. I grew up in Arizona my whole life, been there, haven't really moved. So I wanted to get out and on my own and just kind of start over. And I had a couple calls with UNC, took a trip out here, but the thing that I think really solidified my decision was after Winter Juniors in the fall, that was kind of my main meet to line up scholarship with recruiting and everything. And I had a lot of pressure on myself, and pressure does not do well for me, especially when it's outside pressure and like the buildup of everything for Winter Juniors. And swimming was not good. That was not a good meet for me. But I had a call with the coaches here at UNC a couple weeks after that. And he's actually our associate coach now, Jack Brown. He kind of called me and was like, "Hey, what were your thoughts on everything?" And I was like, not the meet that I wanted. I think I just put a lot of pressure on myself, but moving forward, I know there's a lot more that I can give and put into this sport. So I just want to get back into the pool, start working and kind of get back to it. And he was like, that's exactly what I was going to say to you. The exact thoughts that came to my head. I think you have so much more left in you, and I'm really excited to see where you go, even if you don't end up here at UNC. And that was what really clicked for me with the recruiting process because I wanted a coach who understood me more as a person rather than as a swimmer, so I could connect on that relationship level and everything wasn't just swimming. Like I could build that foundation with my coach and someone who I would trust moving forward. So I remember getting off that call and I went to my parents' room and I was like, I'm going to UNC. And they're like, Are you sure? And I was like, Yep, it's solidified. Like, I'm done. I'm going. So that was kind of the initial like turning point with the recruiting process. And obviously, I've loved it here ever since. So,
That, like, hearing that, like, that's a really, really good move on the coach's part. It both shows, like, how much she cares, and it
mhm.
also just, like, from a recruiting standpoint, is like, that's how you get an athlete to come to your school by showing them that you have that level of care for them, that you care about them beyond just the times that they put on the board.
Right, right. Yeah. So,
So, talk to me about I've tried to pronounce this so many times, and I've looked up how to pronounce it, and I don't know how to pronounce it. How do I pronounce this?
Guillain-Barré syndrome is what I'm.
Guillain-Barré syndrome. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
so I would like tried to do as much research about this as I could, and one of the things that I found out that triggers this syndrome is having an external respiratory infection. Like literally, you could have like the flu like a few weeks before being diagnosed. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you can think back to like a few weeks before you first started feeling symptoms. And if you can remember, like, if there was a time when you were feeling like under the weather, if you had the flu or something like that.
Yeah, so actually a week prior to everything kind of starting with all the numbness and everything, we were in California and I was playing in the ocean and everything, came back and I had a fever. Mom took my temperature and she was like, "You got a fever." And this is also during COVID too, and we were staying with family friends. So we were kind of freaking out a little bit. We were like, "Oh, she might have COVID, like we might have to get out of here, make sure we don't infect everyone else who we were staying with." So we went back home, took a COVID test and came back negative. I ended up taking like a couple more COVID tests after that just to kind of solidify everything, make sure I really didn't have it. We went to, I think, like a minute clinic or something, and they're like, you just have some viral thing, nothing really crazy. And I think I got put on like a Z pack or something, super minor. And that was kind of, I guess, like the initial symptoms a week prior to everything. But I ended up getting fully better. It was just a cold or the flu or something really minor, nothing like super crazy or anything. But that I think was the initial onset of everything. But one thing that we noticed when we were taking blood work with everything, I had the antibodies for mono, which was really weird. So my neurologist thinks that I could have been triggered by mono for my symptoms, but I never experienced symptoms of mono. I've never like been diagnosed with mono and everything. So I might have had it without not even knowing. And that my neurologist at the time, she thinks that also could have been a trigger for everything. And then also kind of with the COVID like rapid test coming out too, she thinks I could have had COVID as well. And that could have triggered everything. The test just kept showing up negative for some reason, just because they weren't fully developed at the time. So there was no real, I guess, like initial, hey, you have this is what caused it and everything. There were just a couple things that maybe this could be it, could have been this, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Just like a melting pot of
Yep.
different
Yeah,
sicknesses. It
just
sounds
petri
like.
dish. Yep, of everything. Yeah. Yeah.
And the actual syndrome, from if my like information that I heard is correct, it's like an immune autoimmune disease that basically just attacks your nervous system.
Yep. Yeah. Literally, like your own body just attacks itself, completely shuts down, and nothing you can really do about it. There's no external factor that really affects it unless it's COVID or the flu or mono, like they said I might have had. But yeah, it is an autoimmune disorder. So,
You know, I watched that video a few times, the one that you did with I believe it was called like Uncut was the name of the video,
yeah.
and it reminded me of like my younger brother. He had pneumonia, but he had like a very severe case of pneumonia,
Oh,
and
geez.
for like a few weeks up until he was admitted to the hospital eventually, and for like a few weeks up until it, we went to like three different doctors, and they all said different things.
Mhm.
And like I remember, like if they caught it sooner, like he probably wouldn't have had to be hospitalized. Probably wouldn't have had to be like that week long stay there. But it just reminded me of that, like the going around to different doctors and them not really knowing, and especially in the case of Guillain-Barré, like how rare it is.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about those initial feelings that something wasn't right, and like how did you handle that uncertainty, like at the same time while trying to navigate like the college recruitment process.
Yeah, so those initial symptoms, it progressed each day and kind of got worse. And Guillain-Barré affects a lot of people really differently. Mine was pretty much overnight. Some people it takes a couple weeks, I think, to develop, but just depends on the person. But not my numbness, it got really bad when I couldn't. That's when I knew it got like super bad is when I couldn't get out of bed by myself, and it was super painful for me to honestly just roll over to my side to lay up and swing my feet around the bed to try and stand up. And then I think the initial like ticking to go into, okay, this needs to go to the ER, we need to go to hospital right now is my vision went blurry. I couldn't read my phone in front of me. I couldn't see the TV when I was laying on the couch at home. My parents and I've never had eyesight issues or anything like that. So we're like, okay, this is not good, not good at
Yeah.
all. And it was really scary because I talk about this in my video a little bit, but I've seriously like never broken a bone, never sprained an ankle, never had any serious illness. It's all gone away within a week on the meds and I'm all good. So this was kind of freaky because I just didn't know what to do. I've never been fully stopped in my life, I guess at some point. I've always been able to return back to swimming, return back to school, continue on with normal life within a week. You take a couple days off of rest, get some sleep, and you're all good. So that was really scary in the beginning. And then also with the recruiting process going on, obviously when everything was happening in the hospital and I was trying to get better and just really figure out what the heck was happening to me, that wasn't at the forefront of my mind. But then once I started to get better and turn that corner, I was like, shoot, like what if this never gets better? What if I am stuck with this for the rest of my life and I've told these coaches that I can come to their school, perform and be one of their top athletes and now what do I do and turn around and tell them? And then in the off chance that these coaches are like, sorry, like it's not going to work out anymore because they don't have faith in me, they don't believe in me anymore, then how do I tell other coaches in other schools that, hey, I went through this whole thing, but I think I can still do it? So it was just a really difficult, and I think the uncertainty was probably the most terrifying part of everything, just trying to figure out what the heck do I do? And there's nothing with the doctors not being able to know what was going on. That was really difficult because I can only do as much as I can do, and it's my own body attacking myself. So there's nothing like I'm just fighting myself at that point. So that uncertainty was really scary, and the recruiting process was a little difficult after that. I'd committed in December, and this occurred to me in July of the previous year, so I hadn't signed anything either. So nothing was really official, just a verbal commitment. Um, so that was kind of a scary thing. My dad, I remember we came home after the hospital, and my parents were like, "Hey, you need to call your coaches and tell them." I was like, are you sure? Like, I think I'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Let's just sign the papers. Like, it'll be good. But no, yeah, that was just a lot to take on. Especially it's just a lot happening in my life at that point too, with COVID going on and everything too. So yeah.
How did that conversation with the coaches at UNC go?
It went really well. I remember the exact thing. We were sitting in my bed at home. It was me and my mom. And I think I'd come back, I think I was maybe a couple weeks out of the hospital, of rehab and the hospital. So just trying to get back to normal life and understand what that looked like and everything. And we were sitting on my bed, and I think, I can't remember if I called my associate or my head coach, but I remember calling them and I texted them before. I was like, hey, can we hop on a call real quick? And they were like, yeah, sure. Is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'll just explain on the phone. And I remember we've talked about it to this day too. They told me they were really nervous. They thought I was going to decommit. Thought I was switching I was going to go somewhere else. It wasn't going to work out anymore. But I hopped on that phone call and I was like, hey, so just kind of recently, I was hospitalized, a couple weeks ago, and I've had this autoimmune disorder. I was paralyzed for about a week or so, but I'm working my way back to it, like trying to get back in the pool as soon as I can. Been working with a physical therapist and gone through rehab and everything. And I think the first reaction they had was just like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry this has happened to you. This is so crazy. We've never heard of this." But then it kind of turned into that reassuring process where, look, you are still a part of this team. We still would love for you to come here. This changes no scholarship amount. This changes not how I feel about you. We still have all trust and faith that you can definitely be one of our top performers and a real big contributor to the program moving forward. So, and I got off that phone call and I was like, that just reassured me even more because I had that initial call in December, and when I decided I was going to commit to UNC, I was like, okay, I'm going here for sure. And then I have this life-changing thing happen to me, and how do I approach that moving forward, going off to school, far away from home, not having my family or anything like that. And that was just super reassuring. I was like, okay, like they've got me. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have these people behind or in the back of my corner, having my back and everything. So yeah, it was a crazy call, definitely for sure. Not what they expected, but it was great. So yeah.
I'm just picturing the coaches mid you telling them, looking at each other and being like, "Oh, thank God!"
Yeah, they're like, okay, like sorry this happened to you, but thank goodness you're still coming. Yeah.
Like they're like terrified going into the call, and they're like, "Oh, you just were in the hospital. Oh, that's fine."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, at least it's just that. I'm like, yeah.
So, talk to me about like the period where you were finally getting back in the water. Like, how long did it take you from like the first time you were back in the water until like you were able to basically do like a full 2 hour practice again?
Yeah, so that was a really long process. I've been swimming since I was 4 years old, so swim is honestly all I've known. I just wake up every day to go to practice or go work out or do something, excuse me, active like that. So I spent about a week in the hospital, week and a half in the hospital, getting treatment and everything, and then I got sent to outpatient rehab for about a week and then came home and we had met with I used to go to a personal trainer in high school and he worked at this gym and there was a physical therapist there and he kind of connected me with her to start physical therapy moving back forward, and she has been awesome. It was straight strength training. She got her medical license at Duke, I think, so was a bodybuilder, like Olympic. She's just awesome. So she got me started right away, building back up that strength, and we started with basic dumbbell exercises, and it wasn't all just I don't know, it was nice to be kind of one-on-one with a physical therapist, and she understood swimming too, so that was a really big help, finding specific exercises that could improve my technique or improve my strength, like pushing off the wall and being able to pull and everything like that. So that we got started with right away. And then I was with her until about the end of December. And this occurred to me July, August. So I was in there for, I think, 5 or 6 months, whatever it is. And then getting back into the pool, that was definitely a process. We had communicated with my club coaches about everything at that time. And I have a really good relationship with my club coaches. And I remember going to the pool by myself because I was talking with my neurologist too. And she was like, you just gotta take it, maybe like 10 laps a day at a time. And I was like, 10 laps? Like, are you kidding me? That's like nothing. I was like, no, no, no. Like, I can totally do more. But that first day getting back, it was it was really hard. My mom and I live right next to my club pool at home, so we just walked on over and got in the lap swim lanes, and I don't even know how many laps it maybe was 10 or 15, but you know how with swimming, like you miss 2 days and you just feel so out of shape. Like
Yeah.
everything wrong. Like it's just you feel like you haven't worked out in like a month. So I hadn't worked out in like 3 or 4 months and I wasn't even walking like 2 weeks ago. And so going back into this, I was like, I am exhausted. I was like, this is gonna be like the biggest uphill I've ever experienced with my life. But those first few weeks were really hard. It was hard because one thing with Guillain-Barré, it actually affected my face a lot too. So I wasn't able to like smile or honestly like put my lips like around a snorkel to like blow out air. So that was a whole new adjustment. And then learning to turn my head again and make sure I could get enough air in the side of my mouth and breathe. It's just like little things. You're like, what the heck? Like, how is this happening? And I remember I was swimming and I couldn't even close my mouth in the water at the time because my muscles weren't strong and I was like water coming into me as I was trying to swim. I'm like, what the heck is happening? Um, it's just so weird. But yeah, those at first like initial practices were really difficult. And I worked high school season in Arizona also starts in the fall. So we have high school states in November. And my goal is to be back competing for high school states and be back competing in those dual meets because I loved high school swimming. High school swimming, I think, translates really well to college swimming with the team environment and everything. Um, so I was like, I need to compete my last high school season. Like this needs to happen. And everything progressed so quickly. Like my neurologist even was like, this is the fastest progression of anything we've ever seen. Like, I've never seen someone bounce back from this so quick. And I was like, yeah, bounce back. I can't even like smile. Like, what do you mean bounce back? But we got back into the pool, I think I'd probably say a month after, and I competed my whole high school season. And I started with high school practices instead of going to club practices right away. Just because that would be a lot, like pretty taxing on my body. And I wasn't doing dryland at the time with my club team. I was listening to my physical therapist because I think I would get a better workout there, just getting my strength training back and everything. So it was a really long process, I'm not gonna lie, but it was really good. And I'm glad the rate that we took it at because I think if I had gone too fast, it would have just totally set me back and just not been good at all. But yeah, it was something.
I think as swimmers, we're like uniquely stubborn when it comes to an injury or a sickness or any sort of thing that throws off our training plan. Because I feel like you get back in the water and you're like, I'm fine, I can do this, I'm fine. And then there's always that rude awakening of like, no, you're not. Take some time.
Yeah, exactly. It was having to be, my physical therapist was like, you need to tell your club coaches, like, you're not doing this. And I was like, I can't just tell them no. Like, what do you mean I tell them no? She's like, no, no, no. You need to just chill. She's like, do you know what happened to you? I was like, yeah, I guess. So, yeah, stubbornness, that's such a perfect way to put it.
So you talked about like when you were in rehab being like the youngest person there, and like that when you were talking earlier about like how quickly you recovered, that like triggered like a synapse in my brain of like being like, is that because you were like the youngest person in like at rehab? But that's not important. Um,
Yeah.
Talk to me about like, well, being the youngest person there. Did you get a chance to talk or bond with any of the people who were there with you?
So because it was COVID, no, unfortunately. I would go to the rehab facility that we picked had a pool and I worked one-on-one with the physical therapist there and everything. But because everything was COVID, like this is also in the hospital too. I could only have one person in the room at a time with me, had to wear a mask and go through all the procedures and everything. But I honestly wish I like looking back now that you say that, no one's ever asked me that before, but it kind of would have been cool to like sit down and talk with some of these people because all these people are a lot older and they're also going through, probably like life-changing experiences too, maybe not as drastic and um but yeah, no, I didn't get to connect with anyone just because of COVID and everyone was pretty separate, but I remember one day we were walking into like the main gym area and I think this was maybe a couple days after, like I'd finally been cleared on my own to walk and I didn't have to use a walker to get everywhere, but I definitely got some looks from people because we were also like I ended up doing lunges in the back hallway and these people like are struggling to get off the massage table or whatever you call it. But I remember walking in and everyone just looked at me and I was like, I was like, hey, I know
Like,
I'm
hi
not supposed to
guys.
be here. Yeah, I'm like, hey, I know I'm not supposed to be here, trust me. But I just stood out like a sore thumb in that place. But yeah, that was definitely something.
That's just such a funny visual in my head. Like you walking, like everybody being like, "Hello."
Yeah, it was also bad too because 2 days before I'm sitting here with a walker. I'm like 17 years old, and they're like, "What is this girl doing?" And then 2 days later, I'm walking, and they are like trying to walk within a span of like 2 weeks versus like 2 days for me. So yeah, it was really something.
You touched on it briefly already, but with COVID being like full swing, Reddit. So that was like, I mean, if my timeline is right, that's like July 2021 is what you're talking about.
2020.
Oh,
So
2020. Oh, I was like trying to do the math in my head, and I'm like, it's 2021 or 2020. So that's like full COVID. Like testing isn't fully available yet. Vaccines are a thing of the future.
yep, yep.
Talk to me about like how did that throw a wrench into everything for you? Like trying to navigate through all this uncertainty while also being a global pandemic.
Yeah. So one thing, so yeah, I'd mentioned when I initially had gotten sick that week prior to everything kind of going downhill. That was the big thing, like just getting tested for COVID because they're like, this has to be COVID, it has to be COVID. And I was like, I tested negative. I was like, it's not COVID. And then I got tested in the hospital. I think I got tested a total of 9 times within the span of 3 days or something because they were constantly testing me in the hospital. They're like, it's COVID, it's COVID. I'm like, it's not COVID. Like, it's not. I'm sorry. I understand everything else is right now, but I've got something else going on. Um, so it was kind of a bummer with everything. I say it's a blessing in disguise, excuse me, because the one thing that was kind of the downside of it, my parents had to switch in and out at the hospital room. My brother, I have a younger brother, he couldn't come see me this entire time because there was only one person allowed in the room at the time, and my parents were switching like 6 p.m., 6 a.m. Like parents would swap. Like I get my dad stay with me overnight, my mom would come throughout the day, talk to the doctors and everything. Um, and it just got frustrating because they were like, like I think it's COVID. I'm like, it's not COVID. Like I understand. But, like I understand kind of everything's crazy right now. And the one thing that was really before I gotten diagnosed at the first hospital I was at, the one I think I had a psychologist come in and he was like, is there anything that's super stressful going on in your life right now? And I was like, I mean, COVID's kind of stressful. Like, I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on. He's like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That might be why your body's reacting this way. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I'm like, what are you talking about? So fast forward everything that was going on, other than not being able to see everyone. And one thing I remember too, my brother turned 18 that year. His birthday's July 20th. And this is when I was just gotten out of the hospital in rehab. And we were supposed to go on a family vacation like a week later or something. And obviously that got canceled with everything. But my brother, we were celebrating his 18th birthday, and he's sitting outside my window at rehab, and we're like singing happy birthday. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I want him to come in and like give him a hug and everything. But mind all that, the one thing that honestly was kind of a blessing was the timing of everything. Because COVID was so crazy, I went back, high school started in like August of that year or something, and my face didn't fully heal back until December of that year. Like I couldn't smile, my facial expressions were not good. I had to go to a speech therapist and everything to try and learn how to move my lips and my tongue again and talk. So I didn't have to be back in person for school, which was really, really nice. I wasn't having to interact with people and I wouldn't get these stares. I wouldn't get people asking, what happened to you? And I can't really explain what's happening to me because I also don't really know what's happening to me. So I was able to stay online for school. I ended up staying for that first full semester of high school. But we were allowed to go back after Labor Day in September, but I was like, I need to stay home. And it was kind of nice too with recruiting and swimming because swimming, everyone was still trying to figure out what the heck do we do for procedures at the pool? How do we host meets and everything? How can we get people to swim? So it was really nice because everything was kind of shut down and then my body like obviously shut down too. So I wasn't having to deal with everything normal life and I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything because no one else really got anything going on. So there are benefits and downsides, I think, to everything, but my parents and I even talk about this to this day, like the timing and everything, I don't think could have been more perfect. Because had this happened the summer going into freshman year of college, I don't even know what I would have done. Or with recruiting going on the previous year, like no one probably would have spoken to me at that time. So, yeah, definitely a blessing in disguise with some things with COVID. So,
I think that's like one of the benefits that COVID gave people was like the extra time. Like even like people who didn't have to go through anything like that, who just had an extra year of training they could do, or
yeah,
like people who made the Olympic team in 2021 who wouldn't have made it a year earlier. It gave a lot of people that extra time to either figure stuff out or to recover. But it sounds like also part of like the benefits it gave you was realizing how good of a fit UNC was for you.
yes. That is so true.
And you talked about that psychologist who came and talked to you, and it reminded me of when my brother was in the hospital. He was about 15, and at one I wasn't there for this unfortunately, but I probably would have died laughing. There was a woman who came in who was supposedly like going around to all like the young kids, and like trying to like entertain them or talk to them or like do education with them for the day. And she was like showing him like, oh, this is how you use like the calculator app on your phone, or this is how you send a text. And it was supposed to be like educating him. And he's at 15 sitting there trying to be the most respectful child ever. But as soon as she leaves, just dies laughing. It just reminded me of that, like, I mean, like, yeah, asking people, like, oh, are you stressed out because of, like, the pandemic is a valid thing. But with everything that was happening to you, it's like, maybe there's a little bit more than that.
Yes, the thing too, my mom even asked the neurologist and the doctors, they're like, "Do you think it's Guillain-Barré?" And they're like, "No, like it doesn't check out like that." Because usually Guillain-Barré starts in your feet and then just makes your way up. Mine was like feet, hands, face, and then in like whole body. They're like, "No, no, no, it's not that." But I have this psychologist coming in and he's like, "You're just stressed." Wow, what do you mean? I'm like, I know you're trying to do your job, but I'm like, maybe a little more common sense here. I think I turned to my mom and I was like, can you just talk to them? Like,
Dude, mothers know. Like, my mom knew that he had pneumonia before he got diagnosed. Like, mothers just have this, like, sixth sense of,
yes.
like, figuring out when something's wrong and what it is.
Yep. Yeah, the thing too, my aunt's cousin had Guillain-Barré too, and her symptoms kind of lined up with mine because obviously, like they kind of do. So my aunt called my mom and told her about that, and my aunt's like, "Okay, this might check out. I'll ask the doctors." And they're like, "No, no."
It's possible even that, like, with how rare it is, that, like, some of those doctors had never, like, had a patient who'd had it.
Yeah, that was one thing. When I came here, my trainers, like, I've told them about it because they ask in like our evals at the beginning of the year. They're like, "Oh, have you ever had this, or this?" And then I mark it off. And then we have grad assistants who work with us in the training room to do like rehab and recovery and everything like that. And I remember telling one of my trainers this year, and he was like, "What is that?" I was like, "What do you mean? What is that? Aren't you supposed to know what everything is?" He's like, "No, I've never dealt with that." I was like, "Oh, well, it's this." Like,
Oh
so,
my
but yeah,
god.
I think it's just because it is so rare. Like
Yeah.
people, you talk about it, and then you're like, "Oh no, it'll never happen," and then you meet someone who does. So,
Just out of curiosity, did you guys ever have to do the like the concussion testing, like an online like the one where it gives you like the squiggly line, and it's like, remember this squiggly line, or remember this pattern of numbers, or these words. Oh my god, I long story short, because of COVID, my community college swim career ended up being 4 years instead of 2 years.
okay,
So I ended up having to do that test 4 times, or like more than four when it was supposed to be two, and I hated it so much.
it's awful. We do it at the beginning of the year every single year. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I do concussion protocol." I'm like, "I think I'm okay.
You're like, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good.
Just
You guys
use the
don't
one
look
from
fine."
last year.
Yep, nothing's changed. I'm fine. I have it in my head. I'm good. It's so funny.
That's so funny to me that like that's like it's probably used across like all of college.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. That
Yeah.
stupid test. So my last couple of questions for you, and like usually I save like some fun questions for the end, in case it's an interview where we're covering like a heavy subject or like experiences that like change someone's life.
Mhm.
Um, my first one for you, and this is fun because sometimes I've gotten people who've like answered this right away, or people who like have had no idea.
Okay.
If you could only swim one event for the rest of your swim career, what would you be? What would you pick?
Mhm. Honestly, I know I'm a little biased because Hunter back I think is honestly my main event, but I would say Hunter back. I don't know. I just really like that stroke. Well, I also I am not good with breath control. Like breath control hurts me, so I think it's good for back
Air
swim
is
for
nice.
yeah, I'm like I can breathe, I can get as much air, I can look up at the ceiling. So, yeah, I think I'd say 100 back because I don't know. Nothing longer than that. I'm a sprinter, so
Yeah.
nothing longer than that. 50 sometimes gets too technical and you gotta hold your breath and everything. So, yeah, I think I'd go with 100 back.
50 is like people talk about like the 400 IM is like one of the hardest events, and it is. But
Right.
like I think the 50 is so much is so much more difficult than people give it credit for
Yes, I
different
agree.
reasons.
Right, right. Complete like I think, 4 a.m. is a different kind of hard, but you have the 52. It's also hard.
Like it's like I actually gravitated more towards the 400 IM because I got sick of doing the 50 free and having like one thing go wrong and add like half a second and like months worth of
Yes.
training just down the drain.
Yep. Yeah, the 50 is it's annoying.
It's a difficult event.
It is, for sure.
So with UNC ended up being the right fit for you, and it seems like you've enjoyed your time there a lot. What have been some of your favorite memories you've had?
Ooh. Um, on the swimming side of things, I think my favorite memory was last year in our 200 medley relay at NCAA's. We podiumed and we finished eighth place. So obviously we're at the bottom of the podium, but that was still so cool to me
You were
because we
still
get the
on the
whole
podium.
yeah, I'm like, I'm still on the podium. I get the camera right in front of me. Like, I get this cool trophy and everything. So, that one I think for swimming is definitely top of the list. And then this year, NCAA's, me and my teammates for other relays, like, we were all up in the camera. Like, I thought that was so fun. One time we did something and the camera guy like laughed at us and he acknowledged us after. He was like, okay, that's pretty good. We're like, thank you. So I think just having fun with that sort of thing, NCAAs and big meets like that can be so stressful. And just finding ways to have fun with it and enjoy this time with my girls and everything like that. But I think more so on maybe the academic and UNC as a whole. Our sports here are just so fun. And I think my favorite tradition is whenever we beat Duke in a basketball game, like we rush Franklin, which is our main street here at UNC. And that I think I we did that a couple times my freshman year, and I remember calling my parents after, and I was like, I just had the best night of my life. And they're like, you ran to a street. And I was like, no, no, no. You don't understand. Like this was peak UNC. Like if I could put UNC in like one moment, this would totally be it because you get to be with this whole community. Chapel Hill's a really small town, but just seeing people come together for something like so much bigger than themselves and celebrating these athletes who go through such difficult training every day, I think that's been one of my favorite parts. And the girls on the team here are just so awesome. I've met some of my best friends here. I'm going home here in a couple days, and my roommate from freshman year, I still live with her, and she's coming home with me for about a week or so. So it's been really great to just get to know people and meet people on different side of the country. Everyone over here kind of stays on the East Coast, and me coming from the West Coast a little bit different, but it's been so great. Yeah, I've loved being here, and I also think we have the best colors, so I think that helps
I
too.
do like the blue. I
Yes,
do
me
really like
too.
the blue. I feel
Yeah,
like
just kind
it's
of
like
worked out.
I feel like it's like peak college experience to do something so simple but have the meaning behind it be like so important to everybody involved.
Yes,
Like you
yeah.
said, like running down a street, but the meaning behind it is way bigger than that, which I think is just it's like peak college experience to do something like that.
Right, and you don't understand it until you're there because you see on TV, you see like 30,000 people crowded in the middle of the street, and you're like, that just looks miserable. You have people burning couches. There's like a huge like fire in the middle, and you're like, well, these people are mad, and you're like, no, you don't understand. Like, I think, yeah, that's one thing I'm like, you just have to be there to experience it. I can describe it as best as I can, but it just won't match up to actually being there. So, yeah.
So my last question for you, and it's interesting, like asking anybody this at, like coaches, swimmers, anyone. What's your favorite set you've done, and the hardest set you've done? So that could be the same thing, but like it might be two different answers there.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever had a favorite set that we've done. I think okay, we did a set a couple weeks ago. We're in long course training right now when we obviously for Olympics and everything. In the mornings we train long course and I was in I think it was I don't know if it was like 100 I think it was 100 stroke group that day. And we ended up doing just we would do a couple 25s with like a we for resistance we use a shower loofah actually. I don't know if other people do that, but instead of using a red chute, we have a shower loofah. So we have loofahs tied to the back of our belts and everything, but we use that for resistance and put some fins on and get a couple paddles and we'll get a breakout in or two for a couple 25s and then take everything off, do like a 50 build of that stroke. I was doing backstroke that day and then just come and haul a 50 all out. And I think we did a couple rounds of that. But I don't know if that's my favorite set ever, but I enjoyed that, I guess, most recently because I was also going fast. So I don't know if that helps. Like my times were I'm pretty confident. I was like, dang, like I'm moving. This set's awesome. Like getting all that in. But I definitely enjoy the sets where I get like more rest so I can actually, I think, like perform even better because back-to-back reps just don't work for me. Like I know that as a swimmer, my coaches know that too. My coach came up to me after that practice. He's like, "So what was different about today versus yes or a couple weeks prior?" And I was like, "Honestly, I think just more rest. Like I need time for my body to recover a little bit more so I can hit those reps at a higher um like achieve higher times and everything that like that." But worst set I've ever done, we didn't do it this year, but in previous years in college, we would do 3100s the best average short course.
That was our weekly test set every week on my club team.
Horrible. Yeah, our distance team during club, my distance group during club did that every Saturday, 3100s. The one I remember my assistant coach here told me, he's like, yeah, we do 3100s, pretty consistently throughout the year, like two or three times. And I was like, shoot, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. So I went to our distance group one day on Saturday and I was like, I came to my club coach and I was like, Bob, like, look, I need to be in here. I need to get like a couple reps and get used to this. And got laughed by like our distance guy on like 100 long course. I was like, this is embarrassing. This is so not for me. This is not the swimming I like to do. I don't like pumping out reps. Can't hold a consistent pace. So yeah, 3100s are definitely the downfall of me. So distance is not my thing at all. My coaches know that. Even on aerobic days, I'm like, this is not it. Like, I'm not enjoying this.
I
So,
came to a really sad realization my freshman year of college. It was like I swam the mile, got out, and like in the next heat was the 200 free relay, and I got out and let off our 200 free relay, and I went a lifetime best by about half a second.
no
And my
way.
coach looked at me and he's like, "I'm sorry, dude, you're a distance swimmer."
Like, no.
Like there's also the realization when like we do like 3100s, and I'd kind of like struggle through like the first 10. Like when I was in high school, we did them on like 130, and like the first 10, I'd make it on like 125, and I'd be like dying, and then
Yeah,
like number 11 would hit, and I'd be like 115 for like the rest of the way, and I'm like, God damn it.
yeah, you're like, shoot, I'm proving his point.
It was such an unfortunate realization.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate.
Ended up swimming like the mile, two fly, and 400 IM pretty much every year.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no thank you.
I don't recommend the mile, two fly double. It's not.
Oh gosh. Yeah, oh my gosh, on Saturdays of
Yeah.
competition. Holy wow. That takes a different type of person.
I still
Wow.
think the one that Brendan Burns did is worse. The two back, two fly. I would
That
rather do the mile and two fly than two back, two fly.
I think so too. The mile, I feel like you can probably pace it out a little more. It's not hurting as like much for as little time. Yeah, that's a dirty double though.
And like in our conference, like I could usually float through prelims and be fine. Or honestly, sometimes there would just be an agreement to not swim the two fly prelims and just have it be a timed final. And then if I was seated ninth or like below, I would swim the mile in the morning and the two fly at night. So it happened like that one year, but there was one year where someone had to ruin it for everybody and he wanted to swim it twice.
Of course, of course. Oh my gosh. That's
Greer,
funny.
thank you so much for sitting down with me. This was great. I really loved talking to you. This should get posted at some point.
Cool.
Um, the dilemma that I've been having, and it's like a wonderful dilemma, is if I posted these interviews out weekly, I would be through to the first week of August.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's been like I've been like very like blessed and very lucky, like that like the people have been sitting down and talking to me. It'll get posted sooner than that.
Okay.
It'll likely be by like the end of this month that it'll get posted.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for being on. This was a lot of fun.
Of course, yeah.
You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.